Hey guys, what's up? So I think I mentioned in my beginner video the way you want to go when you're starting out is like soul level 26 plus 2, and that way you don't get the ganks, you don't get as many of the tryhards. It's a great place to learn, but if you're beyond learning mode and you're looking to hunt big game, I definitely recommend coming to the woods. It's it's really pretty shameful, the advantage a lot of these hosts try to get, especially against these like newer watchdogs. So I'm invading here at soul level 46 plus 6. And there's non-stop activity here, and it's all the hosts that are trying to get an edge on a lot of the newer players. Almost all these guys, they're in New Game Plus. They've got their 15 Estus, as we'll see. Also has his 10 Siegs, has his Blessing, which is really just a tremendous advantage that he has over other players. Now, this fight was sort of interesting because it started off as kind of like a pseudo duel with him standing in the woods. Unfortunately, I lost that bit of the footage because this fight went on for so long. But when I initially arrived, we started dueling. I started whipping his ass, and then when he was about to die, he went ahead and asked us, okay, whatever, it's pretty typical for this area. So then the blues started showing up, and I'm not sure if he took off the blues to fight me or what the deal was. I think that must be what he did, because I don't think a single other blue showed up. Also, I don't think another watchdog showed up, nor any red. So I suspect what he did was he probably put watchdogs on and took blues off, and that way he knew he wouldn't get invaded by any additional watchdogs, and he'd pretty much only have to contend with me, except for potentially another red-eye orb invader, which I guess is unlikely because we did not get another single one. So this build that I have here, this build is like twink to the absolute hilt. Again, you know, the intention is to go after hosts like this that are fully twink themselves and still enjoy tremendous advantages in this situation. As we'll see, he goes through every last one of his Siegs. He goes through his Blessings. He goes through all of his Estus. I get parried. I think I get parried 2, maybe 3 times in this fight. And one of the things that I've been really struggling with, and a bit of panic rolling there, I wasn't expecting the running attack to be delayed like that. In fact, I went and tried to backstab it when it finally came out. But one of the things that I really struggle with is, you know, what's the appropriate level of aggression? Like, how do you maximize your advantage? Like, what's the best sort of expected value approach? And I think it varies a lot depending on the soul level. I think because people throw parries out so relentlessly at lower level, I think you just have to accept getting parried a bit. And I think I should have been throwing out attacks out of stun at least sometimes. The fact that I never ever throw one out allows him to aggress against me. You'll see he kind of catches on as the fight wears on, and it gives him a bit of an advantage that I probably shouldn't have been giving away. And in fact, all it probably would have taken was a single attack out of stun to catch him off guard, and then the next time to run for his back, because these guys, all they're looking for are parries, right? That's all he wants. That's his entire focus. So he's going to be looking for any sort of pattern that he thinks he can exploit. And so you can bait players like this by generating false patterns and then flipping them around. And, you know, depending on the strength of the player, you kind of have to get reads on, you know, how easily are they going to fall for a bait, or are they going to see it for a bait and understand it for what it is. And part of that requires that you sort of look at the other player and you assess their skill level, right? Because if you see a player that's really strong and you see them attack once out of stun, well, they're going to be smart enough not to do it again. But players like this, again, they're not really trying to get reads or anything. They're just trying to pile on aggression, throw out a bunch of parries. And so my counter to that strategy is to effectively bring a lot of my own counter aggression, even though it definitely does increase the risk of getting parried, as you see in the clip here. One other thing you'll see a bit of in this fight, I think you've seen it twice already, and I think you may see it again, I don't remember for sure, but counter backstab strats. So this guy goes for pretty well telegraphed pivot backstabs, which, you know, when you're learning, that's kind of what you have to do. So he's kind of in a learning phase, whatever, but it becomes really predictable. And so when you see somebody that's going for these very predictable pivot backstabs, you can counter pivot BS them sort of by initiating the backstab sooner. So when I would see him coming in as if to do a pivot backstab, then I would suddenly start to move toward him, turn ahead of him, and then I'll get priority and get the BS. Obviously, I don't have a rapier here, but a straight sword works pretty well. He's got a dagger. Now, if he had a rapier, I'm not sure that that strategy would be as effective, and I would probably switch to a rapier myself in that sort of situation, but then that limits a lot of your other moves. This guy, obviously, he's got a ton of latency to me, which makes things more difficult for me. One of the really great things about straight sword S-stock is it's a lot harder to parry in the sense that if I hit you with the S-stock and then the straight sword, I can then go immediately into S-stock again, and you don't have time to parry. Now you have time to roll. It's not a true combo, but people like this that are parry kings, the moment they get hit, they're waiting for that hit stun to end so they can throw out a parry. And if they don't know that about straight sword S-stock, you can really start to bully them with that setup until they figure out, like, oh, I actually have to roll. And then usually once they start rolling so predictably, and then you can just delay that second L1. So L1, R1, delay, wait for the roll catch. So here I'm starting to taunt him a little bit because I know he's getting low on healing items. I see he's starting to walk away, like he's probably trying to figure out some sort of counter strategy to dealing with me. He's throwing out parries ever more relentlessly, which makes him very predictable and of course very easy for me to punish. So there went the blessing. I had been paying attention. I knew he had been using Siegs. I also knew he had been using regular healing Estus. The fact that he used the blessing at relatively high health, to me is an indication he's probably completely out of healing items. And so right now you can see he's kind of dancing around. He's probably in his inventory. He's trying to figure out what sort of setup he wants to use. He's trying to figure out what to do, trying to figure out how he's going to deal with me. Bit of regrettable extra latency there gets me caught out by the Ring Knight straight sword. So my counter to this is he's just going to kind of try to backpedal and try to like whiff punish me. And the moment I see players try to backpedal and strictly whiff punish, my counter to that is to take out a spear, because spears absolutely eat that strategy for lunch. Here I momentarily thought about buffing with poison resin, but I decided I didn't want to take the time. I didn't want to give him moments to think about his strategy. I wanted to try to keep the pressure on him. BKS, unfortunately, is a very strong counter to what I'm trying to do, so we're kind of in a stalemate. And you can see at this point, I know exactly where this is headed. And of course, he gives me the shield waggle as if to say, come on, dude. You know, I don't know what players like this are really thinking. I don't know if they think that running away to the boss fog somehow like denies me the win or lets them survive or shows any of their mettle. Honestly, it just shows them to be very salty, and it shows them to be very poor losers. The fact that this guy knows he lost, but can't accept it, and is going to try to run away and point down at me, even though I used 6 Estus to like his 10 Estus, 10 Siegs, and Blessing. I mean, the guy just definitely got outplayed. And that's fine, by the way. I get outplayed all the time. There's nothing wrong with getting outplayed. Just learn from it and move on to the next fight, you know? It's just kind of silly. And at this point, I don't think I'm going to catch him, but I decide to throw on the Obscuring Ring in hopes that he thinks I followed up behind him and he won't see me, and maybe I can kind of pin him here. And it sort of works for a moment. Unfortunately, the latency causing me to miss the roll catch. So my one option here is to wait when his iframes end and try to backstab him, but with this kind of latency, that's really unlikely. And so he goes and starts the fight. Thanks for watching, guys.